Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to the Small But Mighty Comic Room, Chaco Comics and Nerd Culture. We'll see if that name sticks. I don't know if I'm all that happy with it. Um, yeah, this is going to be the first in the series. I would like to go over some comics that are important, and I don't mean important uh, collectively to mass audience or to historically Action Comics 1 or Detective Comics 27 or Fantastic Four number 1. I'm really going to talk about comics that are important to me, specifically and autobiographically. Comics that were important in either developing my love of comics or a story around that comic was special. A reason why that comic was special to me. Well, I guess first we'll still do the fit check here. So another comic related. Man, there's some white stuff on this, but um, Black Cat 50, a classic cover from Pre-Code Horror. The guy, if you can't tell, he's has a radium rod and it's melting his face in his hands. Kind of a iconic for that era. Lee Elias cover. I don't own that comic. It's one of my grails. I would like to own that comic someday, but it is really expensive. I mean, a very low grade. 1.5 sold in November for like $7,700, and that's that's a lot of money. Um, and yeah, for the beer nerds, I am having a Bourbon County Macaroon Stout from this past release in 2024, Black Friday. I will imbibe during the video at some point. But this specific story goes back to when I was about 12 years old. I, as I mentioned in another video, I lived in very rural Indiana, and I would buy all my comics at the local drugstore. Hook's Drugs is what it was called. I think there were only like two locations, so you'd be able to narrow down pretty easily where I lived back then. For all the fans, if you ever wanted to stalk me, all five of you. Um, but yeah, I collected, as I mentioned in that, I the only title I really collected monthly was X Men. This is during the Chris Claremont run of X Men, the kind of iconic run I think of X Men. One of them, I would argue, the most iconic. And yeah, it was what I looked forward to most every month was going and getting that X Men comic from the drugstore. And yeah, I really like. I think a lot of people really just fell in love with the character Wolverine. I was at that age where also the Wolverine miniseries came out at that time. I had to go to my elderly aunt's house where she had a comic book shop across the alley, and I had to pick it up the Wolverine miniseries. I wasn't able to get it at the drugstore near me. Yeah, and so yeah, it was something I looked forward to every month. It was at that age was in very rural Indiana. There wasn't a whole lot going on or whole bunch to do, so that was like a really big thing. And one month I got grounded, and my mom forbade me to go and pick up this comic book. It came out. I knew the day it was coming out. Came out, like clockwork, every the same day of every month, and I remember wailing about this. Like, it was just too heavy. It was too big for me at that age. That, and maybe I was just too OCD to like know that I have this run of comics that I've been doing for like maybe almost 2 years at that point, and I'm going to have this hole in it, and I could not process it at that age, and begged, pleaded, bargained, and nothing was working. I was grounded, and that was that. So I went to school and concocted a plan. As I mentioned, I used to get the X Men comic, and I would get another comic where it had like various characters in it. Um, Again, Avengers, Defenders, Marvel Team Up, things like that. And so I had a bunch of these, and I offered one of my friends for three of those comics, the non X-Men comics, if they would just go to the drugstore and buy me the X-Men comic that I was missing. And yeah, it was like the day after, or yeah, I made that deal, and then I went and to school the next day. I had the comics. I traded for the comic. I brought it home, and in my I think it was like in my Trapper Keeper or something. I was all sneaky and took it up to my room. I couldn't wait to read it, and I was, you know, so happy that I pulled this off. And yeah, just rushed upstairs, closed the door, and there on my bed was the copy of the comic. My mom went and bought it for me, knowing how important it was. Whew. Yeah, so I felt awful, and it was, yeah, an iconic thing, for my life, for collecting comics. That comic became very special to me as a result, and that comic is this. It is X-Men 171. This is where Rogue joins the X-Men. It's not important for any other reason. Most people would flip through this in a bin and not even give it a second thought. This is a really good copy, so maybe someone would take this. This is probably a 9.6-ish copy. But yeah, I so this has always held a special place in my heart. This is not that copy. I lost that copy many years ago. I mean, after many moves and militaries and things like this, I had very few comics. I do have some that I kept all those years, and I'm going to do a separate video about those specifically, and maybe talk about those in one of these kind of special comics series. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear if anybody else has a similar story, or if you have a channel and you wanted to talk about any comics that were specifically and uniquely special to you, or important. I think this is going to be called "This Is Important." This specific video. Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, as all the cool kids say. And yeah, hope your week goes well. Happy Sunday. Cheers.